reflect the presence of counsel and the defendant. We haven't called the jury in because I need to speak to the cameramen. Very concerned. It's been brought to my attention this morning that individuals observed yesterday on the live feed Mr. Ammon speaking to one or more people. May have been, I'm not going to get into the great details, it could be potential witnesses, and it was caught on the live feed. So I know you're the third cameraman, and I mean, I just don't understand why the rules are not clear. And I asked it when I saw you here this week. I don't know your name, but I'm addressing you, obviously. Is that on Tuesday, I said to the bailiff and my judicial assistant, this is the third cameraman, do we need to give him a copy of the order? And I was told that you knew the rules. You made it very clear you understood what was required. So I want to try to make this, I don't know how to make it more clear. If we're not on the record, which means if the court reporter is not taking down what's going on in the courtroom, you cannot film and you cannot stream that. Do you understand? Yes, no? Okay, I got a thumbs up. All right, we call for the jury now? Okay, we call for the jury. Morning. The record will reflect the presence of counsel, the defendant, and the jury. Mr. Barker, you may proceed. Morning.
Good morning, Detective.
Good morning.
We, before the break yesterday, we were talking about an exhibit. I'll bring that up again. This is Exhibit 186. Let me zoom in on that. In 186, just to refresh everybody's memory, this was excerpts of a conversation about RD. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. Let's just orient ourselves to this exhibit, just starting at the top here on this column.
Sure. So that column shows the date and time, which is February 23rd, 2020 at 11:42 a.m. It also shows who the text message is sent to. It shows a phone number, 715-921-2044, with a contact name of Sam, and a direction, which means it's showing us if the text is outgoing or incoming.
So, for testimony about what
Yes.
So this was a conversation of brother. This information here for the next column over, that's the subject of the audio.
That's correct.
So this is in fact
Yes. It says, I'm getting car done right now.
response from
Cool. Should be all fresh and clean then. Where'd you put your tools?
response.
I'm probably in a buddy's truck with topper.
Your testimony escapes from
I do. Yes.
Scroll down a little bit. The next line says what?
Nice. Guess you'll have to buy a piece of shit vehicle just to store stuff in. Apparently.
Next text is from who?
It's from Mark. They are even washing the car because the guy said he likes it. Also from Mark. And did I mention it's shady AF?
Next
That just sounds shady. Is this a mobile detailer?
What's his response?
Nah, a building.
Next text from Sam.
So you get to watch them touch your car.
Response.
Yes, I am worried it'll disappear because of the nice car comment. From Mark, gotta admit, it's looking pretty fine already.
Response.
Do they just wash or wax as well, or did you just ask for interior detail?
Next response.
They doing fine detail, shampoo, and steam clean.
It's last page. Bennett.
They better do a good job and clean that bitch well. From Mark, I'm sitting where I can watch it get cleaned. Could always spray it down with a disinfectant spray when they are done too.
Response.
True, so rubbing alcohol in a spray bottle. Incredible job on the car. I'm fucking impressed. How much did they charge you? $220. But, excuse me. But 50 of that was headlights.
Sam's response.
That's not bad if they did a good job. That's not bad if they did a good A job. Headlights are nice and clear now.
There's a photo sent.
Yes, which is a photo of the interior, I think, of the driver's side door.
That sent in.
Yes.
We did a 186, and this is all a conversation. What day?
February 23rd, 2020.
Let's go to 188. A little out. 189 is another text conversation. And is this with?
This text conversation is also with Sam Gooch.
And you can see that on
Correct.
what day and time I'm talking.
This is on January 12th, 2020, and it begins at 9:59 a.m.
It's text. So the first text.
It is to Sam from Mark. It says WYD today.
Response.
Making some breakfast. Might do some cleaning. Bored as fuck. Same for some reason. Even this morning's surveillance was boring. Also from Mark. Bunch of old people without much left to live for. Also from Mark. And clearly not the Mennonite people we grew up with. Sad to say, another disappointment.
Next line's from Sam. What does he say?
I wish I was out by you. We'd find something to do or some shit to get into.
Next line.
Exactly, but now it's sad doing anything by myself and taking risks is back at zero.
Sam Sanders.
I thought about getting drunk all day, but even that isn't very fun because I feel like shit afterwards. It really is true that after a while you care more about your health and how you feel.
Next line also from Sam, right?
Yeah, it's a repeat of the same text.
Next response.
Yep, it's all about survival and yourself after a while.
Next line.
From Mark. I keep thinking it'd be nice to come see y'all some weekend, but then I remember it's cold AF and won't be nice around there till mid-June.
Next
Even then, even then, it'll probably be muddy and wet still.
Last line is from Bennett, what does that say?
It says, well, I'm gonna head back to base and I'll be online in about 30.
Time stamp for that last text as well.
It is 10:10. Yes,
So 10:10 in the morning, and you recall Sev's testimony about the needle record.
I do.
Is that consistent with when the actually arrived back?
Yes, it is. I'm
It's
sorry.
the area where he was in the Sunny Slope Church.
Yes.
Now let's go to 188. It's another text conversation, correct?
It is.
And who are the parties of this conversation?
The parties in this conversation are Jake Gooch, Sam Gooch, and Mark Gooch.
See the contact names here. Sam, is that right?
Yes.
Or at the top, who is this text from?
This one is from Jake.
What time?
Can you zoom in a bit? This was on March 14th, 2020, beginning at 8:48 a.m.
Content.
Just gave a Mennonite a ticket.
That's from Jake.
Fuck yes.
The next line.
Also from Mark. I hope you treated him like shit. It's from Sam. Haha, hell yeah. Tell them the VA state police doesn't like cultists.
Next line's from who?
From Jake. I did. LOL.
Next line's from who?
From Mark. Haha, fuck yeah.
Next line.
From Jake. I coughed on him so he would spread corona to the wedding they were going to. LOL. Haha, that's fucking hilarious. Is it a ticket that he has to appear in court?
What is the next response?
It is from Jake. Yep, it's reckless. Mark responds, hell yes.
What's the next text?
Jake says, I told his GF there's freedom outside of cults, and they look so weirded out.
What's the defendant's response?
Nice one.
Let's go to Exhibit 187. Before this, we talked about how this was converted from that Google Doc. So describe again what that Google deletion record is.
Sure. So the one we looked at originally, which was explained by Seb Dishman, was an Excel document, and that was the original document from Google. What it shows is the deletion history for the account mgooch6666@gmail.com.
Mr. Dishman explained that it shows when a request for a deletion of location is made, right?
Correct.
And there's a range for that deletion record, correct?
Yes, the person performing the deletion request can select a time frame.
So, going down the line, what's the first request date?
The first request date is January 19th, 2020 at 7:29 a.m. at 11 seconds.
Again, this was converted to Arizona time. The previous exhibit, that was about, that was in Higgins, right?
Yes,
And 7 hours.
yes.
Arizona time, in 2019,
The range is January 19th, 2020 at 11 a.m. to January 19th, 2020 at 7:29 and 11 seconds a.m., which is the current time of the deletion request.
You said it's 11, but it's 12.
Oh, yes. Okay, I may have misspoke. 12 a.m. Okay.
And there's a similar request.
Yes.
Does it change much?
No, it changes it just to current time, which is only about 6 seconds later.
Right. And another one, again, just a couple minutes later. What is different about that?
That deletion range is now a 24-hour period, beginning January 18th, 2020 at 12 a.m. to January 19th, 2020 at 12 a.m.
All right. The next two requests occur, again, just a couple minutes after the last one. And that concerns what time?
Well, the date that it shows is 1970, so I don't know if that means it was just requested of all time records, and then it goes to the current time.
And then the last one on that same date, January 19th, is requesting what to be deleted.
From January 12th, 2020 at 12 a.m. to January 19th, 2020 at 7:34 and 1 second a.m., which is current time.
Now, the council talked about it in Gooch. This was regarding location associated with the,
Yes.
so, are you aware of how one could delete, Google location information?
Yes, you can do it right from your phone.
Talk us through the steps.
Okay. I don't know the steps off the top of my head, but I have gone into my own phone, for example, just to see how this worked. And you basically go into the Google account. I believe you go into location history, and then through there, there's option to delete.
All right, so that was all done on January 19th, 2020. What is the next date we're talking about? And that, another request.
The next request was made on January 22nd, 2020 at 1:07 and 51 seconds a.m.
The deletion range.
Is January 21st, 2020 at 5 p.m. to January 22nd, 2020 at 1:07 and 51 seconds a.m., which is current time.
Now, we know what was happening on January 19th. We talked about that. What was happening on those dates? 21st.
On the 21st through the early morning of 22nd, Mark's phone records, his Nilo location, show him returning to the area where Sasha's body was later found.
And then another request again, seconds later. What's the range?
It is January 2020 at 5 p.m. to January 21st, 2020 at 5 p.m.
And the last two requests for deletion are for which dates?
For February 23rd, excuse me, the request was made on February 23rd, 2020.
And the first one is requesting to delete which time period?
It's a 24-hour time period, February 22nd, 2020 at 5 p.m. to February 23rd, 2020 at 5 p.m.
And again, just a couple minutes later, another request.
This is from January 21st, 2020 at 5 p.m. to January 22nd, 2020 at 5 p.m.
Do you have any information about what the defendant was doing on February 23rd, 2020?
Yes, that is the day that he got his car detailed, and the same day he asked a friend to hold a firearm for him.
And who was that friend?
Ultimately, it ended up being Levesque, Jeremiah Levesque, who held that firearm.
I think he pronounces it Levesque.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I think it is Levesque. Yes.
Finally, let's go to Exhibit 190.
This report is a timeline which was exported from the Celebrite report for the day of January 18th, 2020 for Mark Gooch's phone.
Does it also include
Yes, I believe that's what the next page shows.
scroll down? So this first line, again, this is chronological.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so the first line indicates that there was a phone call incoming to the defendant's phone. Is that right?
That's right.
And you know whose phone number that is?
I don't know for sure, but we have a tool we can look up phone numbers, and it showed me that it was a motorcycle store in Wisconsin at the time of my search.
That was morning of the 8th.
Yes,
It says 8:38 a.m. That's Arizona time. That would be -7.
correct.
And the duration of the call.
27 seconds.
Next line down is, what is that?
Number 2 line depicts a capture of a video, of a picture at 10:01 a.m.
We've talked about this before. Let's just remind ourselves which photo this is.
Mr. Barker, can I just ask again, what exhibit number is this? I know you referenced it, I just,
This is
like, 190, thank you.
we reference another exhibit that's been admitted. This is exhibit 117. It's a little distorted on this iPad. Is this the capture that we thought
Yes,
on that channel line?
that's correct.
Let's go back to that. And the second line, 2, parens 1, that's the same image, right?
That's the same image.
And then what's the next line? Is that right?
Line 3 references a text message that was outgoing from Mark's phone to Sam that says WYD question mark. Line 4 is also it's a MMS message, but it's a text message essentially that says, lounging on my couch, playing on my Nintendo Switch, need to go out and do snow removal soon. That's from Sam.
That's from Sam to the defendant. And the next line indicates what happened.
Row number 5 is an outgoing call at 10:58 a.m. to Sam, and the duration is 25 minutes and 7 seconds. 10:58 a.m. Yes. Those capture an image that was taken by the phone at 11:09 a.m.
Saw this in Mr. Dishman's presentation. This is exhibit 1. And a little stretch.
Yes.
That was taken at 11:09 a.m. What's the next information we see?
The next is an incoming text from Anita Gooch at 11:17 a.m. and it's a link to a Facebook post. So the first two are outgoing calls to Sam Gooch. First one is 8 minutes and 42 seconds long. Second one is 3 minutes and 42 seconds long. The third one is an incoming call from Sam Gooch, 0 time. And the fourth is an outgoing call to Sam Gooch. Duration is 30 minutes and 33 seconds.
Give us a range for time.
First call goes out at 12:06 p.m. Next call goes out at 12:17 p.m. Next call comes in at 1:19 p.m. And the next call goes out at 1:25 p.m.
Next row is row 12. What does that indicate?
That is an incoming message from a 715 phone number at on 1/18/2020 at 4:47 p.m. And if you were to actually be able to click that, it's a video.
What does it depict?
It depicts somebody's house as if they were maybe remodeling a home and showing it to him.
You know who this number belongs to?
I believe that it's Joy Gooch. Yes.
Next line. Next line. What does that show?
That's an outgoing text back to that number, again to Joy, and it says, "Dang, you're coming right along on that. It looks really nice."
What time was that sent?
4:50 p.m.
Response from that same number? What?
Getting there.
And at 4:55 p.m., what happens?
There is an outgoing phone call at 4:55 p.m. to Sam Gooch, which lasts 25 minutes and 44 seconds.
And there's a gap in time here. The next activity is on line 16. It's a text. What does that show?
It's an incoming text at 6:24 p.m. from Kemper Copley. It says, "Hey, you want to go to the swap meet tomorrow morning?"
Response?
He responds at 6:25 p.m. saying, "Sorry, I can't make it, but I'll let you know if anything changes." So at 6:26 p.m. he says, "Okay, man, no worries."
There's a gap in activity. We just said 6:26 p.m. on the 18th. What's the very next activity? It's a time.
The next activity is an outgoing text on January 19th, 2020 at 7:26 a.m. to Copley, and it says, "Hey, looks like I can make it. Just text me when you're ready, and if I don't reply, just call."
Last part of this timeline shows, again, this is the 19th of January. This is next 8:27 a.m. What's the response there?
It says, "Okay, I'm heading to DFAC now. Leave about 9.
There's a couple calls afterwards with Amber Decker, is that right?
Yes, the next two are incoming calls.
So, on Exhibit 190, again, the text after final communication on the 18th, the next one that happens on the 19th, that's 7:26 a.m. Just remember that. Let me go back to Exhibit 187. When is that first deletion time?
7:29 a.m.
the questions I have.
Thanks.
Mr. Griffin?
I want to reference your interview with Mr. Gooch that we reviewed yesterday, the lengthy video, all right?
Yes.
During that period of time, you asked him for some times about when things are happening, one of them being what time did you leave the base? Do you recall that?
I do.
And he was off on that, correct?
That's correct, by about an hour and a half.
And he's off all the way through by that same margin throughout the day, is he not? You ask him other things about where he was and what he was doing.
He's off, but the time definitely gets longer throughout the evening.
But he starts being an hour and a half off at the very beginning.
Yes.
And he volunteers information to you along the way that you knew about anyway, correct?
Can you give an example?
McDonald's, gas at the Speedway, recall that?
I do.
And you remember him describing, even trying to describe the gas station with a red logo, and you know that to be Speedway, do you not?
I do.
All right. So he was giving you detail that worked for you and corroborated what you thought his breadcrumb trail was, correct?
Some of it, yes.
All right. Now, so he's off on his time by some, and he talks about his route of travel. Was he off on his route of travel to New Mexico?
To New Mexico, no.
Was he off about any other major things that you thought were important?
I would say two things. One, the time that he says he went to the church, and then two, the time that he says he spent at the church.
So the time that he says he went to the church is off again by 2 hours. He says 2 o'clock, and you know that by reason of what we pieced together through the breadcrumb approach, through Nilos, as well as through the picture of his vehicle from the storage facility, he's off by a couple hours still, correct?
Correct.
Now, he's recounting something that he didn't have an opportunity to prepare for. He didn't know you were coming. Is that fair?
That's fair.
He's recounting back from something that happened 3 months earlier. Is that also fair?
Yes.
Right. So you would expect to have some lack of precision on areas of memory, would you not?
Some areas, sure.
Right. And so another example of a mistake that we've now understood the reason why was he talks about, we just went through the Kemper-Kefley exchanges. He talks about calling Kefley, correct?
Correct.
But it's not calls, it's text.
Right.
But he confirms that the name Kefley and the communication with Kefley, correct?
Yes.
Right. Same thing about the purpose of going with Kefley. He tells you it's going hiking, right?
He did.
But he's off on that. It's actually that he was going to a swap meet, correct?
Yes.
And that's now been corroborated by Mr. Kefley, correct?
Yes.
And so all those small things you've taken into consideration, right?
Yes.
Now, you mentioned yesterday during your examination that that he had told you that he was going to go to the Snow Bowl, but that he didn't actually get there. It was closed or whatever, correct?
He told me it was closed, yes.
Right. And you told us in your direct yesterday that you checked with the Snow Bowl.
Yes, I did.
Right. And you checked with the Snow Bowl, and they confirmed to you that it was not closed because of COVID, correct?
The resort was open for the day.
Right. Did you have more from the Snow Bowl about what was going on January 18th at the Snow Bowl?
I think I see where you're going. They did tell me that sometime around 2 p.m., one of their 6 lifts closed.
Why didn't you tell us that yesterday?
I wasn't asked.
So you have information that the Snow Bowl was closed. There was a problem with the main chairlift. The wheel had broken.
Objection misstates the evidence, not closed.
Sustained.
Let me clarify. Snow Bowl, when you talked to them, told you that the lift was closed.
They told me one lift closed later that afternoon.
I'm going to ask you to take a look and just verify if I can have this marked for a moment.
Okay, I've reviewed it.
And in that, that's a post by Rob Lindy, General Manager of the Snow Bowl, about what happened on January 18th at the Bowl, right?
Yes, I've seen this.
And in there, he uses the words, experienced a mechanical issue that closed the lift and has remained closed since that time, correct?
Yes.
Those are the words he's using. He talks about when they'll be able to reopen. Those are the words that he's using, correct?
I'm sorry, where is that word?
He talks about, he anticipates that the closure will not last more than a week or two, and that we don't have an opening date at this time.
For that lift, yes.
Right? And that's all information that you had yesterday, correct?
Correct.
Right. And so on this issue of whether Mr. Gooch knew about something about closure, he could have had this information, correct?
No, this was posted the next day.
Well, that's posted the next day, but you don't think that word of mouth would have confirmed that the bowl was closed?
Well, the lift closed down later in the afternoon, so I suppose it could have spread by word later that day, yes.
In your role as lead detective in the case, your effort, at least in part, is to gather as much evidence as is possible to support your case one way or the other. Is that fair?
Yes.
In other words, you don't just look for things that support a case. You're a neutral investigator. You're providing information that would fall either way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And though you didn't mention anything about the Snow Bowl yesterday, wouldn't you think it would be fair that we knew about that?
Objection vague.
I was asked, we were talking about in reference to Mark saying that the ski resort was closed because of coronavirus, and that is not true.
So when you approached Mr. Gooch to do the interview with him on April 21, and you used a ruse, right?
Yes.
And the ruse that I think you explained yesterday was that he was going to do some sort of random drug test for the Airforce, correct?
I think that George explained that in his testimony, but yes, that is what was done.
And then the thing about the license plate wasn't accurate, correct?
That's true.
There were other things in the interview that you either embellished on or were not completely candid about. Is that fair?
That's fair.
And is that the way it works in your industry?
I would say it's normal, yes, not to reveal all of our information during an interview.
Or to use misinformation to your advantage if it will achieve a goal for you?
We do use misinformation sometimes during interviews, yes.
It's a tactic, is that right?
Sure, yes.
I don't have a further question.
Mr. Barker?
Counsel just referenced your goal. To achieve a goal, you use certain tactics. What would that goal be?
I would say that my goal is to get the person's story that I'm talking to.
What would it do if you just provided all the information you had to a person? What could happen? What would be the problem with that?
The problem would be that they would not be telling me their story. They would be responding to what I told them.
Is that also why you would separate witnesses in a case to make sure that their stories are their own?
Yes.
In other words, you don't want people to adopt things that are not their experience.
That's correct.
Is another way of saying goal, or another way of phrasing that, is your goal to obtain the truth?
Always.
Now, you're asked a bunch of questions about Snowball. I think you clarified most of it. The question I asked you was it closed for coronavirus? Was that my question?
Yes, it was.
Was there anything in the defendant's phone indicating he knew that there was some type of closure?
In the phone, no.
Or that he was going skiing that day?
No.
And in fact, the closure didn't even happen, the closure, if we're going to call it that, one lift, until later that day, right?
Yes.
In the afternoon, where was the defendant?
He was in New Mexico by that time.
The counsel asked you about the defendant referencing a trip this trip to New Mexico, that happened 3 months earlier. In most cases, that could be a long time, but did he indicate this was the only trip he'd ever taken to New Mexico?
He mentioned he may have passed through New Mexico on his drive to Luke Air Force Base originally, but this was the only trip he had taken from the base to New Mexico.
Counsel asked you about if he was off on his travel route, and you talked about how he could have been off a couple hours on the way there. What about on the way back? How far off was he on the time?
Well, he started off saying he got home at 9 p.m., which he actually got home at 7 a.m., and then
7 a.m. when?
the next morning.
Okay, so how many hours difference is that? 10.
Yes, 10 hours originally, and then he did narrow it a little bit, but he was still off by 5 hours.
Did he ever volunteer, counsel asked you about volunteering information, did he ever volunteer information about stopping at Sunset Crater?
Never.
Did he ever volunteer information about, well, initially, about traveling to New Mexico?
Initially, no.
When did he finally admit he had traveled to New Mexico?
I believe it was when I told him I was a detective from up north investigating a homicide.
And his response was probably traveled to New Mexico. Is that your recollection?
Yes.
Now, did he ever volunteer information about that he stopped in Flagstaff 2 days later?
No.
In fact, when you asked him, or when you told him you had information he had been to Flagstaff, did he change his story?
No. Oh, excuse me, he did. He did tell me he may have gone for a drive.
He didn't volunteer that before.
Correct.
In fact, the volunteering information only happened after you told him that you had information about what he was doing. Isn't that right?
Yes.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Any of the jurors have a question for Detective Nagele before she is excused? All right. I don't see any. Oh, we do. Okay. Counsel, please approach. Did Sasha's cell phone ever communicate with Marks by voice or text?
In the records that we have, which cover a significant amount of time, no, there was never communication between the two.
Does the Mennonite church allow members to return to the church/group/community after one leaves the church? If so, are there any procedures that need to be performed to re-enter? So it's 2 questions.
I don't think I'm the right person to explain that process. I don't understand it well enough. But my understanding is, yes, they would allow somebody back in their church. But that's about it, all I know.
Any other questions for this witness before the witness is excused? All right, apparently no further questions from the jury. Mr. Barker, any follow-up?
No, thank you.
Mr. Griffin? All right. May Detective Nagele be excused and step down?
Yes, thank you.
You may do so. Mr. Barker, you may call your next witness.
Thank you. The state calls Lisa Pelosa.
will you approach, please? All right. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we're going to go ahead and give you your morning recess. Sure, there's some matters we have to handle. Just as I said, we often work, we actually, every day, we're working outside your presence to get on trial issues and keep the trial moving forward with witnesses and testimony. I'm going to let you know the break could be longer than 15 minutes, so, highly likely that I expect it will be longer than 15 minutes, but we're still on track with our schedule. So, remember the admonition. Keep an open mind about the case. Do not formulate a position about the case. Do not talk to anyone about the case. Do not let anyone talk to you about it. That includes each other. So when we're ready for you, and again, I'm expecting it's going to be more than 15, 20 minutes, Mike will bring you in when we're ready for you. So enjoy the recess. We stand in recess. Please be seated. Record will reflect the jury's been excused for the morning recess. So counsel, what I'd like to do, if it's okay, is take maybe a 10-minute break, just because I would have to give Dahlia a break anyways in about 20 minutes, but just in case anyone needs to use the restroom, I need to talk to Brooke. And so could we take 10 minutes and then I'll meet with you in chambers as we discussed. Okay.